Okay, everybody, this is Lee, and this is not legal advice. I was about to say this is legal advice, but that's wrong. This is not legal advice. Today, Allison and I are talking to Josie May, and we're going to be talking about how to survive the holidays, whether you're single, whether you're married, or whether you're in a divorce, going through a divorce, or in that kind of process where you're not with that partner anymore. So, Josie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Josie May. I'm a love and dating coach, and I work with single women to attract the love that they desire and deserve. It's great to be here today.
Sure. And Allison, what about you?
I'm Alison. I'm your Loved Again and Forever coach, and I work with women who are in that difficult place. They're trying to decide whether they want to stay married or not. I help them reach the decision that works for them and plan to move forward one way or another. So yeah, I'm delighted to be here today, and it's going to be a great topic.
Yeah, and I am Lee Daniel, and I have been practicing divorce law for over almost 25 years now. And I can tell you that the holidays have come to be synonymous with me with a lot of client problems. It's last year, my associate, it was his first year at the holidays, and he said, "Is it always like this? Because there's not a time that's more fraught with people being really frustrated about the situation, with not being able to spend time with their kids, not being able to be in their house." I mean, it's really, for some reason, the holidays just get... What was that? The holidays really get people in this kind of overwhelm, and they just get so stressed out. So why do you think that is, Allison? Do you know? Do you get like that?
I have to say, I found for years and years and years, I've found the Christmas period to be so fraught with stress. I live somewhere, my in-laws live somewhere else, my family lives somewhere else, and we always were drawn one place or the other. Never particularly welcome wherever we went.
Oh,
which brought its own set of problems, because nobody likes it. Christmas is a stressful period without having a family of four landing in your spare room for a week. So yeah, it's fraught with all sorts of problems. You take all these different personalities, all the problems that you probably moved away from in the first place, and you put all those people back around a table for goodness knows how long. What are you drinking? Is that bourbon?
no, it's tea. Like, I'll probably have to cover that up or something. Or maybe I'll get some money for product placement.
A tough life as a divorce lawyer in Alabama.
Yeah, drinking bourbon before 7. No.
So yeah, it's an incredibly difficult period, and even more so if you're in that place where your relationship isn't working, where you're struggling anyway just to keep that moving forward, and then you put all the fraughtness of Christmas and the present buying and the obligation that comes with it into place. So yeah, definitely not an easy time for anybody, even if you happen to be the happiest couple in the world. I think there are problems that come up.
And that's funny, because when we're single, sometimes I think we get into a place where we feel kind of sorry for ourselves. Josie, do you have any? I mean, do you find that women that you coach, or women that are single, or men for that matter, that they have the same kind of stress?
Yeah, I suppose the thing with the holidays is it's almost like a double-edged sword. So it can be really lonely, particularly if you've not got a partner, and dependent on what sort of arrangements you have for the holiday period. But also there's lots of opportunity to get out and meet people. I met my husband on the 18th of December.
Oh.
Yeah, I was on a Christmas party in a bar, and I met him there. And I know that it's quite a common time of year to meet people. So there's really amazing opportunities to get out there more than you normally would. You'll get more invitations, things like that. However, there's also the other side of that. Christmas Day can feel very lonely. I know in the States you have Thanksgiving. If you're used to kind of having a big family thing and suddenly you're on your own, that can be very difficult as well. So there's two sides to it, really.
Yeah, and I see that, especially what Allison said, when clients come in, and like right now, between now and through December, people will come in and say, I'm ready to get divorced, but I don't want to till after the holidays. So here you are, holding that feeling in of, I don't want to be here. I don't love this person anymore. And the thing is that the people around you can sense that, right? And so I haven't really answered this question for myself, but should you really wait to through the holidays? I mean, I guess you don't want to ruin it for the kids, but everybody can tell. I mean, everybody can feel it. What do you guys think?
I have a client at the moment, and the most wonderful decision she made for herself was not setting a date to leave, because she had fallen into exactly that place. So she was going to leave in July, but July holiday period. So I'll leave after the summer period and the kids are back at school, and then, this happens, and then, there's Thanksgiving, then there's Christmas. So maybe I'll leave in January. And that was actually causing her so much more anxiety and so much more stress than the marital problems in the first place. So when we took that out, we said, look, let's just leave that for a minute. You work out what you need to do in order to make that decision and in order to leave. Suddenly, she said, I feel like 10 pounds lighter. I feel like I can actually think again. So, if you're forcing it, if you're hanging on to that, I'll do it after. Let go of I'll do it on, January the 1st or January the 3rd. I'll do it when it's right. Once I've got everything else in place, once I know what I need to do, once I know what's, what I need to do for myself, what works. A lot of the times, we leave. I was talking to someone earlier and she said, I just decided I didn't want to be married and I left. It was fine. I was 20 something. I didn't have any kids. But then I had to do the work afterwards before I met my next husband. So instead of just, make that, do that work, understand what it is that you need to do to get yourself emotionally ready to take that step out. Don't make it after Christmas or before Christmas or on the 3rd of May. Or, I think that's such an unhealthy thing to do, and actually causes more stress for you than it does for anyone else.
Yeah, and there's no perfect time. I mean, that's what, it's just like you said, there's no perfect time. There's going to be a holiday or a birthday, or somebody's going to be graduating, or somebody's going to be going to school, or it's going to be somebody, it's a family vacation, or we've got a cruise booked. There's no perfect time. But I do hear, yesterday I met with 4 different people, 4 that all are going into the holidays, knowing they wanted to get a divorce, and, knowing that they're ready. And so they're not going to do it till after the holidays. And I can just imagine the kind of stress. In fact, if I could think back 20 so years ago when I first got divorced, the first time, I've only been married twice, for those of you like, oh God, how many times have you been married? If I could think back, I'm sure that I had that same kind of feeling, because I think I did leave around between Thanksgiving and Christmas myself. But what do you think, Josie? What do you think about holding it in, and because you're protecting the kids, or what do you think? I
think if you've made the decision, if you've already made the decision, then I think it could be more damaging to stay around. Basically, you can always make different plans, can't you? The holidays might actually be the perfect time to do it, because the kids will be too busy, kind of with family or friends or whatever. It depends what you do. I think it's a personal decision. Really, but it makes things a bit messy, doesn't it? It just makes things a bit messy. You've often got family around who want to get involved, put in their opinion. I know that can be a lot of struggle, isn't it, when people are separating, family's opinion on that. And you could maybe avoid it most of the year, but Christmas, Thanksgiving, difficult time, isn't it, really, to avoid family on the whole. You're going to see them, probably.
Yeah, and what I see, this happens if you're single and have kids too, but people really fight about who's going to have the kids. There's a huge struggle. Most of my cases right now that are active are all about who's going to have the kids for this holiday, for that holiday, if they don't have a schedule in place. Why do you think that? I mean, I don't have children, and both of you do. So why do you think, or what do you think are some answers for that? Because it's definitely not, again, not legal advice, not something that I can really tell you. But what would you say Allison, if somebody's trying to figure out their time and having a difficult time processing it?
I think that goes back, that's a question that goes back to in whose best interest are you working, not you, but the parent working, because I cannot think of anything worse than not spending Christmas Day with my kids. And therefore, when I'm thinking like that, it's very difficult to not fight tooth and nail to make sure that I have them. But that might not be what's best. In fact, it certainly isn't what's best for them, because if they're being pulled one direction or the other, it's not going to be a happy Christmas for anybody. So I think that the best thing to do is, and that's why it's so important to do that work beforehand, to so that you can actually put in place some sort of plan of action. You can have that conversation and say, look, and I know that Josie has a great system with her son. How are we going to work this so that we both get kid time and the kids get that feeling that they're loved and they're adored by both of us and they're not feeling torn. So it's being mature enough to come at it from that angle, which I know when the resentment and the hurt and the anger and all those emotions are running high, it seems almost impossible to do.
I'm so glad you said that, because I don't know why I haven't thought to mention that to my clients, because we're in this place of trying to get them what they want or trying to get the schedule, and I never really have even thought to say, well, what's best for your kid? I mean, yesterday I did have a client and we were trying to think of, well, how are the kids going to feel if they're gone with you the whole week to see your family in another state and they don't get to see their mom, for the whole week for Thanksgiving. So I do occasionally, but really you're exactly right. People focus on what's best for me. And, I understand. And Josie, so you have a situation where you share custody or?
Yeah, I do. And I remember the first Christmas where we'd separate. So I separated from my son's dad when he was 7 months old.
Oh, wow.
So he was a tiny baby. So I quickly had to get used to not having him around all the time. But that Christmas, we every Christmas we've done different things. We always, to be fair, we're very amicable and we always come up with something. But I remember I always kind of had him on Christmas Day, then he'd go to his dad's on Boxing Day. Luckily we're like half an hour away from each other. It's not a big deal. However, one year he said, I want him on Christmas Day. And it was really difficult for me. What we arranged in the end was we came to I had him till 2 p.m. and then his dad picked him up at 2 p.m. and took him to his house. So we both got him on Christmas Day, but we're lucky we live so close together. But I'll be honest, I wanted to say no. I didn't, because I took a step back and thought, I can't say no here. I've had him on Christmas Day, but and I was miserable. I'll be honest. I was miserable. I sat there after he'd gone. I'm like, what do I do now? It's boring without my child. So, it's tricky. It is tricky. But like Alison said, you've got to think about what's best for them. And I think the more amicable you can be, whatever the situation, the better for the child. I grew up in a household with my parents were divorced who didn't speak my whole childhood. They didn't speak.
That's horrible.
It was horrible. And I was determined that my son wasn't going to experience that same thing. So I know from personal experience it's horrible. So I didn't want him to. So I suppose it's like Alison just said about going back to the kids, not about me. Of course, I want him on Christmas Day all day long. But he loves his dad. His dad loves him. And they should also spend time together, as much as it is difficult for me.
And there's some judges in Madison County, and there's a judge that I really love. He's retired now. I was just thinking I'm going to tag him. And he used to say, your child or your kids need to think that you think that you're the best. No, let me get this right. I'm obviously not as eloquent as the judge. Maybe I won't tag him after all. But what your child needs to think, that you think that they have the best daddy or mother in the whole wide world. You should let them think that, man, your dad is great. Or if you're the mom, no, vice versa. It's because you want them to really love and appreciate that parent. And instead, I see people that say, oh, this is your dad's fault. that you're not with me. And that is so damaging to the kids. That is really damaging. And so getting yourself out of the place where you're trying to communicate with your kids about the holiday plans, for me, even again, not legal advice, even though it is prohibited, at least in Madison County, when talking to your kids about the divorce, you shouldn't be discussing that with your kids. I mean, again, I don't have kids, but Allison, do you, I was about to put you on the spot and say, do you talk to your kids about the
divorce?
That's why she's not the parenting expert. And I'm sure, I know that my mother used to fuss about my dad, but especially when you're in a divorce and you're polarized, right? And there's, the child knows you're not together anymore, or you're not going to be together. And so you're pitting the child against the parent. At least when you're still married, the child or children know that you're still going to be together that day. But what do you think, Josie? Have you had problems with that? Or
yeah, I've seen it as well. I've seen it with clients and with sort of personal friends where they'll say things to the children like, your dad doesn't care about you. Yeah, and they're not, because the child's all for the dad, maybe because he's not around as much, whatever, and they'll say things like, your dad doesn't care about you, and thinking that they're trying to, but actually, how damaging is that? It's terrible, isn't it, when you take a step back and think about it? And I know from these people who've said these things, they're certainly not meaning to damage the child. It's they're in their emotion. The child's asking to see, or the dad's not turning up. Look, he doesn't care, but look how much I care. It's almost like you've got me, but actually, that's just the worst thing you can do. Like you said, the best thing you can do is be positive about the other parent.
Yeah.
And any issues you deal with as adults, away from the child.
Yeah.
They don't need to be involved in any of that.
And I hear that about Christmas and Christmas presents too. They didn't get, they'll say, I've even heard kids say, when I have to talk to children, oh, daddy never gets me, or, they never get me a Christmas present. They never do, and that's just, and maybe that's true, but you shouldn't bring it to the child's attention. Oh, I got you more. I did more for you. I have a better Christmas for you. We have a better family, because a better family situation. I've also heard before, well, they don't have family here in town. It's not important to them, but it is, even if you don't have extended family, that doesn't mean that parent shouldn't still get equal access to have their own tradition with the children. And I think that's something that I hear a lot. Well, but my family makes a big deal out of Christmas. They won't even care. But what kind of, we all have Christmases differently. And what kind of Christmas traditions would you say, Josie, that a single person may have with their child, or if they're by themselves?
So for example, if you've got a big family and you enjoy a family Christmas and you enjoy it as a family, that's great, but not everyone has that, like you said, and some people have just the two of them. So you could make it, if you just had your one child, and you could make it really special, just the two of you, or you could do something completely different. My mum and my sister, now that I'm married, me and my husband kind of split where we go every year. And my mum and my sister last year, because we weren't there, they went to a soup kitchen and they were homeless. So it's something like, you could do something like that. You could give back. If sitting at home without your husband, who you've divorced from recently, and just with your child on your own, if that would inside feel like pain, if it would not be a fun day, do something completely out of the box. Do something completely different. So you could go and help the homeless, which is a great way to kind of introduce children to giving, or or go to an old people's home.
Old people, I'm starting to feel a little hot over here.
That's not what you say, is it? I apologize. That's
No,
what we
that's
say.
okay.
That's
I mean, it's not because I'm an old person.
Oh, no, you're not. No, you're not.
Limits in the UK for old people. You've got to be above, and you and I are still below, way below.
Yeah, way below, way below. So not a retirement home. What's the word? I don't know. Anyway, but go.
That's fine. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'll just stop now. Go somewhere where these people don't have families, and maybe they're lonely, and go and talk. So there are different things you could do that aren't the traditional, sit around a table and eat turkey kind of thing, but maybe would be the best thing for you. I think it's about kind of, and of course for your child. So if you're going to struggle on your own, try and find something to do with other people. Maybe join another mother who's single, and you have it with a friend and your children together to make it feel a bit more of a group setting if you're struggling with that.
And I'll tell you, I've taken a much happier stance, but in the past, because I've been single a long time, and there definitely have been holidays where I felt more lonely, and one of the reasons is because my mother won't let me forget that I'm single, and I think she's gotten used to it now, but when I was younger, she used to really put a lot of pressure on me about the fact that I was single, and are you alone? Are you okay? And, having somebody remind you constantly, are you okay? Are you okay? Makes you not okay. And so I can remember some sad holidays. I can remember feeling depressed and, watching movies all day and feeling sorry for myself and probably eating way too much. But I also can remember holidays where I booked a trip to the Caribbean, and I was in St. Martin, and so many people asked if I would marry them there. So it would have been a dream time, except I didn't want to marry the taxi cab drivers there, or the pool boys, or the bartenders, or the retail managers. But, if you're single, and that's I found it was a great time to get away from work, to go on a trip, to just really nurture myself. You have some extra time off. Why don't you do something that you really would love to do, right?
Yeah.
Allison, what about you? Do you have any traditions that you suggest for people that are in the situation where you coach them from?
I was just off fantasizing about taking myself off to the Caribbean on my own this Christmas.
Let's go.
Let's do it. My Christmas is always relatively fraught because as I say, we're pulled in so many different directions. And the thing I've learned over the years for me, and it's something that I try and impart on my clients, is stay as true to yourself as possible. Of course, we've got all these obligations, but my first and foremost obligation is to make sure that my kids have a good Christmas. But without overstepping the mark, without making it so much about me against everyone else that we're all miserable. But at the same time, I've got to make sure that I'm being taken care of, that my needs are being met, that I'm not being manipulated is the wrong word, but I'm not being forced into situations that really, this is my time. Christmas is important to me as it is to you, as it is to anyone else. So let's make sure that I'm doing the things that I enjoy. And often, you've got the struggle going on within your marriage or within your relationship, and then you go into that bigger picture, and then you're forced into another box where you've got to perform in a certain way in front of the family and whatever. Right. And then, of course, what happened to me? I exploded and I left home. But that's the stress of those situations put together causes all sorts of problems. Mm-hmm. And you don't want that. So it's a time about, to put yourself first, to set boundaries, really strong boundaries for yourself, and practice them, push them out there, and see where you go. And don't end up, I ended up on Boxing Day a few years ago on a train back to Milan on my own and left the family there for 5 days because I just, I'd never done it before, but I was being so manipulated and so pushed that the only thing to do was take myself out of the situation. Yeah. It was the bravest thing I've ever done.
Good for you. And I was just thinking about what are some things that we could suggest to people to do if they're going through, they're feeling a lot of distress about the holiday, because people do, like I said when we first started, they just really get sad. They get really sad about their marriage ending, or that they're single, or that their marriage is not working out. I mean, I think that honoring yourself is a really good one. And what Josie said about doing something for somebody else, I think for me, that always makes me feel better. And you may not recognize it. Last year, my mom and I, or 2 years ago, went and bought tons of toys. Like the day after Thanksgiving, I hate that shopping, but we went, she loves it. So we went to the local Walmart, and I bought hundreds of dollars of toys for Toys for Tots, and in honor of Project Positive Change, and I just think that if we can just think of some ideas for some people of some things that they may want to do, Josie, you got anything?
So yeah, always one I think, like I mentioned before, is the homeless, because that's always a time, isn't it, where they, you might struggle. There's always also children, local sort of social services departments.
Right.
I used to be a social worker, and we were always looking for toys for kids, for families who weren't either able to or didn't have the money to kind of buy toys for their children. So again, there's things you can do like that. Going to retirement homes and speaking to people who don't have family. There's some sort of scheme where you can invite somebody who hasn't got anyone to be with at holidays to come to your family home and and have Christmas dinner with you. I know there's that in the UK. They have it on Sundays as well. So an older person, perhaps who hasn't got any family, and they can come to your family home.
What time is dinner? I'll be right there, Josie. I've got no plans.
Stop it.
I don't. Yes.
You just haven't had the invitations through yet.
You could, dependent on your own funds, is go and help out in Africa or in Asia, in a country that needs support,
Right.
and go and do a project to kind of escape the holidays completely, but also back. So yeah, these are ones just come into my mind.
Yeah, and I like, I think we talk about this a lot, but being grateful. I mean, Allison, I know you've done gratitude challenges. How can just being grateful help people get through this transition?
Well, I think, being grateful is a fantastic tool to refocus. And that was something when you were talking, I was thinking, one of the biggest things, Christmas and Thanksgiving, they're so, everywhere you look, it's so commercialized and we buy into it so much. But actually, it's just another day. If you can deflate the commercialism a little bit and just remember it is just another day. It's you don't have to buy into that, and that's where gratitude is fantastic. But because it does focus on what you do have. So yes, what maybe something we can do, and it's something that I get my clients to do occasionally, is a gratitude list around their ex-partner. Because let's be honest, you're fighting about the kids, but without your partner, you wouldn't have them.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have the life, you wouldn't have had all those experiences. So, maybe turn it that way and really focus on what was good rather than what you've lost by the separation. Because, when you work on gratitude, what you actually do is create a space between, what you've got and what you want. And you can really face all those hurts without being drawn into, without them overwhelming you, and let them go. Because we have to let go of all those feelings that we have. So gratitude for me, I love gratitude. I could run a challenge every day of the week, but that's a really powerful one. Is actually focus on your ex-partner, what he gave you, what she gave you that you wouldn't otherwise have, and keep looking for what you have rather than what you're missing out on.
Yeah, and just focusing on what's right about your life, right? I mean, when I do travel, whether I'm at the beach or wherever I go, I always have a journal with me. And you're in a plane or a bus or a train, you have an opportunity to sit there and think about all the things that you have in your life. And no matter where you are or who you are, you've got something. I mean, you've got, from the person that works at the dollar store as a cashier or to the person who, has a high paying corporate job, they each have something to be grateful for. And so, the smallest things, if you just start thinking about the littlest things, then they'll add up and it'll make you feel better. I didn't realize the power of gratitude. I do now, but it really is an amazing thing. And I had a client yesterday who was saying, my wife took all of the art supplies and all of the kids' toys, and the kids don't want to be at my house because they don't have anything to do. And I said, well, why don't you do something fun and take a shopping trip and get some new art supplies? You don't have to spend a lot of money, but let your daughter go with you to the art store, and let's pick out, make some new traditions, do something, make it your own, and I know sometimes it's hard. And this is something Allison said, visualize what you want, right? So what are some things, I mean, Josie, since you've been in this situation, what are some things that you would visualize when you were in that between phase of being single with a child and before you got remarried?
Yeah, so I visualize kind of in terms of a new relationship, I visualized the kind of relationship that I wanted to have. So I visualized what this guy would be like, how would I feel when I was with him, how he'd be with my son. And it just puts you in a better place. And it also reminds you that actually that relationship that you're in wasn't right. And if, you know, you're hurting, particularly over the holidays, it's a difficult time, it can be a difficult time, then, you know, it's good to kind of remind yourself that actually, like Alison said, you can do the gratitude about what kind of the good things that brought you. So for example, me, my son, and the experiences we had and things. But also I knew that relationship wasn't right. So I'd visualize this amazing relationship that I was going to have in the future. And it just puts you in a better energy. Your whole energy raises when you have that positive mindset. It's transformational, having that positive mindset. So sometimes we want to wallow in our own self-pity. There's something about it that's almost a bit delicious. I don't know why.
Well, it's because of the wine and cheese that you have with it. That's why it's delicious.
So true, yeah. It's so
Easy.
true. Ben and Jerry's and all that.
Pizza.
Yeah, pizza, the lot. But yeah, there's something about it that you can kind of get into. It almost can become a pattern. So my advice is always to break out of that pattern and find the deliciousness in something more positive. So visualization is a really good way to do that. And you can have a glass of wine, you know, I'm not stopping that when you're doing your visualization.
And even, you know, even just visualizing yourself being happy. I mean, we have a friend who's doing who's just done some what if cards, and I found myself, and if you guys want to do some what ifs with me, I thought that was so awesome. So I found myself saying things like, what if it was easy to lose weight? What if I only need 5 hours of sleep? What if that bug that I saw is just a friend? You know, I started like ridiculous what ifs, but it really got me going on a positive slant. And so if you're going through this, what are some what ifs you could say, Alison?
I was thinking again, I was miles off. Come back to me, please, because
I'll come back to you. Josie, what about you?
So what if this is all part of the bigger, better plan? What if I step back from this and I could see that this big picture and my soulmate is really close to me? What if everything is working out perfectly?
Yeah.
It's just a great question to ask with a what if this adventure, what if this story is something I'll look back on and be grateful for?
Yeah, I was just saying, what if this is the best holiday I've ever had? Yeah. Or what if this is the best trip? So I'm going on a trip today. What if this is the best trip I've ever had? You know, it really puts you in that space of feeling expectant and feeling happy instead of this place of, you know, which I see so much unhappiness, especially at this time of year. So Alison, you're up.
Yeah, I'm up now. Yeah, sorry about that. I was thinking about curiosity. That's what caught me. I was like, you know, stay curious. And it's exactly what Josie was saying. You know, what if this is the best time ever? Everything's working out for my higher good. You know, what is this going to teach me? And instead of, oh my God, here we go again. This is awful, poor me, miserable. What if this is going to teach me something? What is it going to teach me? What am I going to be at the end of it? Who am I going to be? What will I have learned? How will life look? It's kind of, you know, it does carry you along with it.
Yeah.
But going back to the pity party, I've got a really good friend and he throws pity parties, and he actually takes an alarm clock and he sets an alarm clock and he gives himself 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, depending on how bad
6 hours, 2 days,
14 years. And as soon as it rings, it's like, okay, that's it. Leave it now. Go back. If I need it again, I can have another pity party. That's enough for today. And it's just because I think, you know, we need to go through these things. It's not that we can just pretend they don't exist.
Right.
But giving yourself, you know, sort of setting it up so that I do it, but that's enough for today. Actually, you know, get bored with it after a while. Oh God, have I got to go and set the alarm again? I won't bother.
I love that idea. I'm so glad you said that, because, you know, we definitely, I don't mean, you know, that we don't feel empathetic with the people that are feeling sad, you know, because I mean, I definitely know I've been in that space where, like I said, I felt sad. And what I've done recently or in the last several years is just like your friend, I don't set an alarm, but I say, it's okay if I don't feel that great today. It's okay if all I want to do is read today, or if I don't feel like going out. It's okay. You know, rather than pushing myself constantly to be doing something and being on or being happy, you know, giving yourself permission for that time that it's all right, you know,
Yeah.
it's all right. It's and something I was thinking about earlier is when you're in the situation where you have an ex-spouse or ex-partner or even current partner that you know you're unhappy with, I think that maybe setting some agreements with them for the holiday, or setting, you know, if they'll talk to you about it. I know Allison talks about communication. I mean, what are some things that you think would be important to communicate before you head into this Thanksgiving, Christmas, you know, season?
I think in terms of, I was going to say in terms of couples that are still together, but actually across the board, the easiest way is the simplest way, or the best way forward. You know, so instead of trying to make, and I think it's easy to fall into that trap. Well, I'll have them for 3.5 hours here, and then you can have them for 4 hours, and then I'll take them back. Keep it simple. You know, everyone's much more relaxed. Make an agreement. If it's got to be, you know, if you happen to live far away, okay, you have them for Christmas Day. And I'm saying him, her, baby, child, dog, whatever it is that you're arguing over. I'll have for Christmas, you for New Year, or for Thanksgiving and Christmas. You know, split it up in a way that you both have that significant time with your child, and with the understanding that next year we'll swap it around. Next year, you know, make sure that it's for everybody, but as simple as possible for me is always the best way.
Yeah, and we have visitation schedule. So actually what I was talking about, but although I will say, I have clients, so this is a big engineering town, and if you're watching, you know that already. I have clients with very complicated calendars that are color-coded and blocked with not only days, but hours. So, and I look at it and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't even, I'm like, can you just do this? Like, just tell me rather than show me this complicated diagram of what hours you're going to have your kids. It's very confusing. But like, I think an agreement about, even though I know it's difficult, it's so difficult to have a conversation with somebody that you're at odds with. You know, I know that it's hard, but maybe just agreeing to be kind to each other, or just agreeing to make sure that it's a good Christmas for the child, or, you know, and I'm just grasping because, again, I haven't been in this situation for a while.
You know, for when you're actually having that conversation, it goes back to, you know, as I say, communication, but it goes back to the intention behind it. So if the intention behind the conversation is to, you know, to make sure that the child is going to will have the best Christmas possible, and therefore you and your partner, your ex-partner, whatever, will by default have the best Christmas possible because, you know, because you're both working for the higher good of the child, or the higher happiness of the child, or whatever. You know, if that's the intention, it's, you know, there's something in the way that you communicate that makes it so much easier. Whereas if there is a sneaky intention to get your own way somehow, the other person does feel that, you know, it comes across, and that's where the defensiveness comes in, and that's where the, you know, the aggression and the lack of, you know, being able to come to some sort of agreement. So, you know, if you're watching and you're the one that's about to have that conversation, check what is your intention going into it. What do you want to, you know, to get out of it? Be completely honest with yourself. Even if you're, you know, being honest with yourself is actually, yes, I want to manipulate this a little bit because I want to spend, you know, the whole time with my kid. Of course you do. Of course you do. We all do. And so does your husband or your wife. But, you know, if you can be really honest with yourself, then you can change that. And there is something magic in changing the intention behind the conversation. Same words, they fall differently. And it's so much easier to come to an agreement. Even if the other partner isn't really there with you, he doesn't understand what's happening, he feels a difference in the energy.
And Josie, so you've experienced this, I'm sure, but when there's a new person brought into the mix, that is a big one at the holidays as well. Because sometimes the mom or dad doesn't want the new person to be with the kid on the holidays. And that caught, like right now I have a situation where a woman said, if you bring her around, I'm going to make your life miserable. And, you know, basically I'm going to cause a scene if you bring this person to the Christmas play. You know, it's a public place, it's a school.
Yeah.
And of course, this is the new partner. They've been divorced a few years. And this is so bad for the kids. So bad for the kids. And I see it happen all the time. And I have to say, I attract amazing clients now because that's the kind of energy I want to have in the world, that are not angry. Well, they're angry some, but they don't, you know, are not in that space. But how do you deal with that, Josie? How do you deal with that introduction? Because a lot of times that's when you want to have that new partner around. How do you deal with that with a child?
And again, you've got to go back to what's best for the child. So if this partner is somebody that you've been seeing for a sustained period of time, so you know that you're serious about them, then I think the other partner has got to at some point accept that the children are going to meet them. However, you can't just introduce every partner to your child, you know, like on a whim, because that's really damaging as well. So so for example, in the example that you gave, that would be the most damaging thing for the child, wouldn't it? If you come to the school play and then the parents are arguing, and that would be horrendous. That is not about the child one little bit. So I suppose both partners to go away and think, why do I feel that I'm right in this situation? If it's 3 years on, I'm sorry, for me, I just think you're going to have to accept. And as long as that person treats your children with respect and is nice to them, then you've got to let go a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I've been in that situation, and I know my ex-partner is in that situation as well. We've both got new partners, and sometimes that can feel a little bit, oh, what have you been doing? Especially when you don't know what they've been doing. So they go away for the weekend, they come back, they've all had fun. What have you been doing? And like, you know what children are like? They're like, I don't know. And you're like, I want to know what you've been doing.
Was she nice to you?
Tell me. And
just
my
ask you to draw a picture.
Yeah. My son's
Don't
just like,
ask
I don't
them
know.
to record or take pictures of the other. I have people that their kids come. The kids are spying on them, basically. Their own kids are spying on them during visitations.
That's just not on, is it? The other thing is, what I would always say is as well, and I see it so often, and you know, please stop this. Don't introduce your new partner to your children without telling your ex-partner that you're going to do it, because then it can become this secret for the child as well, and then they're pulled into this secret, which is not fair on them either. I think, you know, they might not be happy about it, but tell them that you're going to do it. Give that respect to the other parent that you kind of expect back as well, because that would be a shock. Your child coming home and saying, oh, daddy's new girlfriend's called so and so,
and you know, Josie, I always have ideas for you, but I think that's a wonderful, like an opt-in or some, you know, that is an area that there's so much tension. And when I'm with my clients, that is a huge source of anger and fighting, and you know, and the kids are put right in the middle of it, and it's just not in the best interest of the kids. And you know, I know that people's emotions are high, and it must be jealousy, right? Is that what you think is at the, you know, I mean, what is it that makes the person not want their kids to love the new partner?
That they've never done the work that they have to do in order to leave the relationship with grace and with love and with compassion. They're there, and they didn't want to be happy in the relationship, but they don't want to be happy. They don't want anyone to be happy out of it. Yeah. So instead of being able to move away gracefully, they're stuck in that same pattern. They haven't actually cut the ties with their ex-partner. So of course it's nothing to do with the kids, but the kids are the ones that are always going to suffer. God, these poor kids. But you know, they're the ones that are going to suffer, and that's why it's so important to do this. Make sure you know why, first of all, why you were attracted to this person in the first place. That's so important. Why, you know, what went wrong, what your part in it going wrong was, because we all have a part, even if it's only a tiny little part, even if it's only I allowed him to abuse me verbally, to treat me, you know, without respect. that was, that was your decision to allow it to happen. Know what your part is, so that when you go out, you're not still living that relationship day in, day out, day in, day out. Because if you are 3 years down the line, you're pissed off that your partner's taking his new girlfriend, you're still living in that relationship. You're not living in the present moment. You're never going to attract the kind of man that you desperately, desperately want and actually deserve, because you're not giving yourself that freedom. You're bitter and you're hanging on to what was in the past rather than opening yourself up to, to what is available to you, and let other people live their lives. Oh, I'm on a rant.
And I, another thing, and I know this almost, to me, it goes without saying, but don't call the new partner names in front of your kids. I mean, first of all, it's better if you don't call them names at all, but calling them a fat bitch or, whatever in front of the kids, I see that, I had one case, and I've been representing the people since the man, his son is 16 now, and I started representing him when he was like less than 6 months old. That's not how long I've represented this family. And the mom, who's fair to say is a little bit nuts, could never let it go that he got remarried. Could never. I mean, throughout, calls her names, posts negative things on Facebook, and know that the stepmom is the sweetest person, and I love her dearly. And it just never ended. It never ended. And the kids were put in the middle year after year. You can't love her and love me. You can't, and it's just hurtful to the children. And I see the effects it has on the kids. And I don't even know how parents can't see how damaging that is.
I think on the other side, as the step parent, or as the emotionally mature one, it would sound, you just don't react. Because, if you're not reacting, there's nothing for the ex-wife to go against, or the ex-partner to go against. Eventually they get bored and stop. Yeah. The damage is going to be done, but it's one way to stop it. Just step out. I'm not playing this game. I'm here for I'm here for love. I'm here for the long term. This is your problem, not mine. Sounds easy, doesn't it? But
one of the major causes for second marriages ending is when there are children involved. So it's definitely a dynamic that's difficult, especially if the children are older. And Josie, I know you've never called have you?
No.
What do you call her?
I've called him names, but not in front of my son. And the thing is, we were very amicable breakup. We didn't have, don't get me wrong, it wasn't completely amicable, but as amicable as it could be, breakup. And we both were quite mature about it, really. So, and he had a child from a previous relationship.
Oh, okay.
And and I had a really good relationship with her. I still have a really good relationship with her. I see her very regularly. She's my son's big sister.
Oh, nice.
And not only that, is she and her mother both came to my wedding. So,
nice.
Yeah, so we really kind of, but when I first met him, his ex-partner was unhappy because, and the reason I mentioned this earlier is because we went on holiday. We went on a holiday and we took his daughter.
Yeah.
And he didn't tell me this either. He didn't tell her mum. So she found out with the holiday pictures. So she flipped her lid. And I don't blame her. I didn't know. Her daughter was 10 at the time. And she did, and she felt like it was this little secret, a daughter, which I wasn't aware of either. So that doesn't work. And that caused a lot of tension for a short period. Anyway, we used to pick up her and I met her outside the house and we made friends and everything was fine after that. But, it can really be stressful. It can be stressful, especially in a new relationship as well as a step parent. But he wasn't acting in a mature way. So he should have been more mature about it, how he dealt with it. It can cut, if you're not in it, if you're not fully into it, you can give up. You can cause a lot of stress, a third person in your relationship. That's how it feels, a third person. Yeah. And even if you ignore it, it can, people can be quite persistent for a while, can't they? So, so it is tricky. It's definitely tricky. But I think Alison's got the right advice to kind of take a step back from it. Ask your partner not to tell you maybe the information you don't want to know, because that can make it more difficult, can't it? And of course, they're telling you from their side as well. Yeah. When your partner is telling you how terrible his ex was. Of course he is, because he's the innocent, as you always are when you're telling the story of your previous relationship. You were innocent, and they were horrible. And that's always how it is, isn't it? So tricky situation.
And so I know that if somebody's watching and they have bitterness and they're angry and they're depressed and they hate their partner and they hate their partner's new girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, I just want to tell you that while I understand that's not really helping you feel any better. It doesn't make for a better life to hold on to that anger and resentment. And that's why there are people like Josie and Allison that help you deal with those kind of things. I mean, that's not what I do. I try to get people to look towards what's the positive from this? How can we see a better life out of this? But, you have to, before you can move on, you have to figure out a way to deal with those feelings, even if you're married, if you're not married, if you're single again, you really need to deal with those things. And there's no time like the present, right? And so we're going into another thing about the holiday season is that it's right before the new year, and it's a good time to take stock of where you are, what you want for your life, how you want your life to be different. And if you are like harboring those feelings, then, both of these ladies are amazing. If you're still married, you of course can talk to me, because we'll be divorcing people like crazy in the new year. So you guys just say where they can find you, and it's almost time for us to go. So Josie, you're up.
So you can find me at stepuptolove.com or at Facebook/stepuptolove.
Allison?
You can find me at alisonreiner.com, or Love is an Inside Job, which is my Facebook group. Come and find me there.
And if you're watching and you have a terrible dating story, Josie and I have just started working on a book together, Studies of Bad Dates. And we hope that it's going to be fun, and we're going to be able to help people get past the bad dates and move on to better dates. I may even try dating again myself. Who knows? Why are you laughing, Allison?
I thought it was beautiful. I thought of a bad date story for you, and I was the bad date.
I know that tons of people have bad dates. So Josie and I will be coming up with something, and we would love to have lots of contributors. And so we keep watching, and we'll see you next week. Have a great day, guys, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. If we don't see you before then.
Bye.
Bye.